Let me tell you a story that I've been keen to tell. Not all pet food is the same. Like the foods that you and I eat, some are considered more healthy than others. Most try to make a conscious effort to feed our pets the more nutritious options. But what if I told you that some of the pet foods you thought were pretty healthy were actually causing them more harm than good? Well, let's go to my guest, Dr. Tom Lonsdale. He's a veterinarian with more than 5 decades of experience in the field. Now, Tom is the author of a book, Multi-Billion-Dollar Pet Food Fraud, Hiding in Plain Sight. He also runs the website, The Pet Food Con. So, Tom, thanks for coming back on ABC Radio Brisbane. Tell me the story. What is pet food fraud as far as you're concerned?
Oh, well, good day, Steve. Nice to be with you. As far as I'm concerned, it starts with the first lie that the stuff in the can and the packet is either suitable or safe, and then goes on from there. So they've built a massive confidence scheme, confidence trick, where the global pet owning community are drawn into feeding this stuff to their animals on a daily basis for the rest of their lives. And, of course, it's very harmful for the animals. So, yep, fundamental lie, it's suitable. It's not. We're talking about carnivores, of course, cats and dogs, maybe ferrets, not up in Queensland, though. And they need to rip and tear and chew at their prey, their food, in order to stimulate their brain chemicals, clean their teeth, tell the stomach that something's on the way down. They don't need to have a dollop of grain-based mush from a can or the kibbles. They're like bullets, this stuff, that just sit in the stomach for 12 hours trying to suck water out of the rest of the system in order to become in some way softened that they can travel on down the gut. You know, these animals are massively injured on a daily basis. Is this why
we're seeing what you'd call similar to human illnesses, diabetes and obesity in cats and dogs in Australia?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that's the end stage. In the interim, of course, they've got a lifetime of massive ill health and misery. And, of course, they're speechless, so they put up with it. They don't have a toothbrush, so their mouths become ever more rotten, and the stinking breath that's given off is considered to be normal.
How harmful is the processed pet food? What's in the commercial pet food products that's so bad for domestic pets, Tom?
Well, everything. Look, it's all highly processed, ultra-processed. And we warned off ultra-processed food for ourselves and the family. I mean, we don't... hopefully we don't give our dependent children ultra-processed food at every meal. We wouldn't even give them McDonald's at every meal. But let's just conceptualise. Take McDonald's, for instance. Their breakfast, lunch and dinner, tip them into a big mixer, grind it all up, then spread it out, bake it, dry it, whatever, turn it into nuggets, kibbles, and then feed that to your family every day for life. And say, well, it's complete and balanced. You don't need to worry yourself any further. All right, well, McDonald's would be pleased about that because they get everlasting shelf life for these nuggets that are being fed to the fur-covered creatures in our family on a daily basis. Yeah, it is just woeful. And then it's done with veterinary endorsement. So the healers, the so-called healers, are in on the alert.
My guest is Dr. Tom Lonsdale. Tom is a veterinarian with over 5 decades' experience. He's the author of Multi-Billion-Dollar Pet Food Fraud, Hiding in Plain Sight. Tom, I accept what you say, but it's convenient. It's convenient to go to the supermarket, buy a packet of dry food and cans to feed to my cat or dog when I go home.
Okay, convenient for you. Not so convenient for the pet. And then, unfortunately, there's a separation in time. It's convenient for you to take the supermarket products and chuck in the basket. But it's not so convenient to queue up down at the vets and then shell out a few $1,000s to get the resultant problem sorted out.
So what are the long-term conditions you're seeing in animals who are being diagnosed with the result of a poor diet? What sort of diseases or illnesses are they seeing in your veterinary practice?
Well, the everyday ones, of course, the gut problems, the skin problems, but then there are the behavioural problems. I mean, these animals are out of their brains with anxiety and concern because we don't actually know how bad they feel. But you can imagine yourself, if you had a gut full of kibble sitting there all day long, your stomach would hurt, your head would hurt, and so on. So all that general malaise that the animals suffer. But thereafter, of course, you're then talking about the rotten teeth and gums, which is the sort of standard prop for the veterinary industry, where you go and you get your dog's teeth cleaned until you start having them pulled out. And this is a sort of 6-monthly event.
Can the damage be reversed, Tom?
Catch it early enough, yeah. So, you catch a puppy or kitten when it's early, well, it doesn't have the problem. Wait until it's a year old, yes. So long as you change its diet at that time, then it will recover because the teeth and gums aren't so far gone. And for older animals, if you pull the rotten teeth, change the diet, then they pick up their bed and walk again. It's really quite remarkable. I wrote an article back in 2007. It's being republished. And the hallmark of all this is that we were able to fix hitherto hard to treat or impossible to treat conditions by pulling the teeth and changing the diet on a grand scale. Now, if you can do that for very difficult conditions, then that applies to all the general conditions too.
My guest is Dr. Tom Lonsdale. He's a veterinarian with more than 5 decades' experience. He's the author of a website, The Pet Food Corner, the author of a book, Multi-Billion-Dollar Pet Food Fraud, Hiding in Plain Sight. This is ABC Radio Brisbane. People love their pets, obviously. So what should they be feeding their dogs and cats? Let's go the mainstream animals. What should my listener, what should I be feeding cats and dogs if I really do care about them and regard them as a family member?
Right. Well, okay. As a carer, you've got to think this one through. And the best thing to do is this is what I advise my clients, try and unlearn all the beliefs that you hitherto held so firm. Get rid of that. And then cast your mind back to what this modified wolf, in the case of a dog, or modified desert predator, in the case of a cat, would be eating in the wild. That's the gold star standard. That's the standard the zookeeper employs for his carnivores. So we should aim to get as close as we possibly reasonably can to that standard. Why wouldn't we? We don't want to injure our pets, and in my case, my patients. So something ideally covered with fur, feathers, and fins. But the second best pragmatic option, raw meaty bones, has proved over 30 years to be perfectly adequate. So big pieces of raw meaty bones. That's the hallmark. That's the key to the carnivore code, if you like. And that's how they thrive. And you just chuck one of these things in the backyard because you live in a good climate for the dog, and similarly for the cat, and leave them to it. And actually start to learn from observing your pet. And you will not only see the difference in their behavior, but you'll hear it too. You'll hear that wonderful crunching, how they toss the food stuff from one side of the mouth to the other, cleaning all of their pearly whites. It's a crucial thing. You need to see that on a daily basis. That's how they do it in the wild. That's what you want to replicate in your suburban home.
Are pet food companies aware of the side effects that their convenience food for our pets, are they aware of the effects their foods are causing to animals?
Oh, abundantly aware. Yeah, absolutely. They're running big research programs to try and resolve this. Back in 1992, and that's a while ago, I was a guest speaker at the university in New Zealand, and my host said, "You won't quite realise this, but the extent to which the industry now has geared up its research into gum disease, periodontal disease, as a result of my agitation back then." And then the other big condition they're abundantly aware of is of course, obesity. they can't do much about diabetes. And we're talking about end-stage disease. Of course, they've got vast research institutes that are looking into all of this stuff, and they are doing their level best to offset the downside of their junk, trying to deal with it. And then, again, you ask, do they know? Well, yes. Just the other day, we published an open letter to them, the junk pet food industry and their enablers. And I say in that letter that they have to acknowledge that there's big problems and cease and desist, or come up with evidence to suggest that their stuff is suitable and safe.
Are pet foods in Australia required to meet particular health standards like we are for people?
Well, they are. Yes, they've got some spoof standard called the Australian Standard for the Manufacturing and Marketing of Pet Food. Well, there's so many bad assumptions enshrined in that straight away. Manufacturing. Wait a minute. The food of the wolf and the cat in the desert is not manufactured. And then they're more concerned about the marketing, and nothing that is absolutely totally outrageous that you could instantly identify that it was outrageous. It's all very subtle, this. And it's been going on for 150 years. And we're talking about pet food. Right, it slipped into the vocabulary as meaning that stuff that we pour out of the packet and into the bowl. No, we've got to reconceptualise. If we want to do the right and fair and honest thing.
Just briefly then, because I've got to go to the news in a second, but how much training do vet students get about nutrition? Is it good enough? Because people rely on the advice of their vets. Are they getting enough training in this area?
Oh, they're getting none in terms of how to feed an animal-appropriate diet. They're taught all about the kilocalories and the fat and the protein in the kibble and the can. Taught nothing at all about how to feed an appropriate diet. No, because because the pet food companies got there first. So they're paying the universities. Every English-speaking university that I know of is in cahoots with the junk pet food industry.
Tom, I'll leave it there. I'll speak to you again one day. Thank you very much for your time once again.
Thank you indeed. All the best. Thank you.
Dr. Tom Lonsdale, author of multi-billion-dollar pet food fraud, hiding in plain sight. He also runs the website, The Pet Food Con.